America's crumbling infrastructure. It's everywhere you look. And that's going to be the topic of our conversation today is what's going on and what can be done. How did we get here and where do we go from here? So that is our topic today. But before we get going, I would ask everybody to like, comment, and share on these videos. It really helps us get the word out there and get some more subscribers so we get more exposure. And so I appreciate that. I answer all comments and so I appreciate all that stuff. So let's dive in. So crumbling infrastructure, aging infrastructure, decaying infrastructure, whatever you call it. If you go online and look, you're going to find hundreds, if not thousands, of stories. We're going to talk about a few of those today, but just here's a search I did. Let me. I guess let me adjust that a little bit here. Yeah, that's kind of. I apologize. Sometimes things get off a little bit. So this is just a search I did in online, just a browser type search, and you can see we got some stories here. This is searching for aging infrastructure. You can see it just goes on. I mean, we got tons of stories here, and there's just pages and pages of stories. So. It's aging infrastructure concerns. I mean, there's a literally hundreds and thousands of these. If you look for something like crumbling infrastructure here, once again, here's a 60-minute story on YouTube. There's a Wall Street Journal video. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube about this. You look for decaying infrastructure, you get the same types of results. You can see that you just scroll down here and you get a lot of them. So, but what made me come back and revisit this topic was this particular article here showed up on Zero Hedge, and yeah, you can say I call Zero Hedge doom porn. It's kind of politics and economy, and they do take a decidedly negative view on things in the future, but there is a lot of good information there, so I do check it. But you can see here's just this is just from the 29th, so just this Tuesday, they had a big water main break in Times Square, flooded Times Square. So with all the problems that New York has, this is probably one more they didn't need. You can see the pictures here, and we're not going to dwell on any one particular thing today because it's just we can dive into a lot of these. And a few weeks ago, we actually looked at some specifics in the state of Texas that is having their share of challenges too. But it's all over. Here's a big break. They lost 1.8 million gallons of water into the subway and major disruptions in the subway. So you can see, I mean, they have emergency crews that go out there and fix these things, but obviously you got 1 million gallons of water that floods the subway. It's going to cause some problems. So, and this is not atypical. It's New York. It gets in the news, but it is not atypical out there, and even in our friends to the north, up in Canada, they say even in Canada where water prices are low, aging infrastructure and rising costs are the problem. So they have similar problems to us, and the problem of aging systems adds up. And they go into some examples and how they're not paying enough for their water because they need to set the money aside to fix these things. And here, getting back here into this country, it's not so well. I guess what I like to say always is that we love to build things in this country and we're good at it. We're not so good at maintaining things, and that therein lies the problem. And you'll find as we dive into some of this stuff here that a lot of this comes from lack of money, but it's not always lack of money. It's deferred maintenance, which I guess you can trace back to lack of money. I really call it allocating money unwisely because you say, well, we can kind of get by and not doing our maintenance this year, maybe shift some of these funds over here. And so what happens is you end up with a deferred maintenance problem. So you're allocating your dollars that should be going towards your maintenance and replacing things, and you're shifting it over to things that may have a more immediate needs or a little more sexy or something your customers want done, and you're not properly allocating money to do the routine maintenance. And we got to do the routine maintenance, folks. It's just there. It's not sexy. It's um, not something that a lot of people like to do, but you got to do it because otherwise it becomes real easy once you kick the can down the road with the deferred maintenance thing. Then you keep kicking the can down the road instead of, and then we have emergencies all the time, and you're running around reacting to things instead of being proactive. Now there is money out there. Um, a lot of times that does not trickle down effectively to smaller and medium sized water districts like the ones I work with. And so they need a little bit of help. It seems like the bigger water districts have people to go after this funding, and they're able to get it as they need it. Smaller water districts just do not have those resources available to apply for the funding, and it takes some work to do that. But this article from 2021, we'll see some of these that go back a ways actually, but this article from 2021 really kind of pegs it a little bit. Is it they're promising billions of dollars from the American Rescue Plan Act and Build Back Better and all this and that, but the money is not necessarily it's out there, it's helping, but there's not enough. It's not getting to where it's going, and part of the problem is the deferred maintenance thing, the kicking the can down the road. Like I talked, this particular article talks a lot about different funding that's potentially available and coming up. And this lady on Water Online, which has a lot of good water news, and I recommend them. She talks a lot about the infrastructure and the money that's available and grants that are coming out and different funding that's available from the government, and that's important. But I kind of think the answer will dive into that a little bit more. But yeah, going back and getting government funds to fix some of these things is important and it can help. But the question is, how did we get here? And the way we got here is we don't, and especially small to medium sized water districts have this problem. They do not set aside enough capital funds in order to pay for the necessary maintenance, and that's where you get the deferred maintenance. That is vitally important. Having an asset management plan and a capital improvement plan to go along with it is really the answer to this. Now we got to get back to where we should be, and then maintain things going forward. So whether you need, and what people don't like to do is they don't like to do these capital improvement plans because it says we need more money than we might have available. So we're going to have to go back and raise our rates, and people hate to raise rates. However, I will tell you that the price of everything is going up, and as much as you may hate to raise rates, rates have to be in line with your capital needs and your day-to-day operating costs. They have to cover those. There's just no way around it, because you are doing a disservice to your customers by not raising rates to adequately provide for your water system. And then so you'll get the flip side of the coin where customers will start complaining. They lose water pressure. They have this problem, that problem. They got rusty water coming out of their taps, and they're complaining about it. Well, they may complain about rate increases, but if they're justified, then people are willing to pay those. And it's just no way to operate a water utility not having adequate funds and setting that aside. So your rates should really reflect what you need to do to not only operate your system on a day-to-day basis, but to do the maintenance and then do the replacement costs, having a capital improvement plan to do the replacement costs for when things age out, so that you replace things on a regular basis. We do have some folks that we can recommend that can help with rate studies and that type of thing, and so I'm happy if you have any questions on that. You're a small water utility and you have questions on that, we can get you help with that, because that's very important. The rates need to be where they need to be to pay for this and stuff. And this is kind of how we got to where we're at. So now it's nice if there's going to be federal funds and state funds available to help play catch up, and that's going to be necessary. But responsible fiscal management at the utility level is where it all starts. So and then one more here, where this is. Well, this article is paywalled, but you get the idea on the headline here in the first paragraph is the unfunded liability in the closet, aging water systems. And this kind of gets at the crux of things, is that we have a huge unfunded liability. And a lot of this is not kept on the books necessarily. So the financial statements of a water system do not necessarily represent all the liabilities that are out there. You're going to have to pay for all these replacement costs. That does not show up anywhere in the financial statements. So you may have audited financial statements, everything looks good, but you have all these unfunded liabilities that are out there, and that is the lurking problem that you're going to have to deal with, and so not necessarily reflected in the financial statements. So that's where the capital improvement plan, where the asset management plan comes in place, is having a plan and then going back and getting that on the books, and being able to show people that they may question a rate increase, that it really is necessary. And what would they have you do otherwise? I mean, most water systems run fairly lean. There's not a lot of fat running around. There's not a lot of excess money that's being spent on things. They run pretty lean. So having a rate increase to actually reflect reality is important, and going back and revisiting your rates on a regular basis. That's the other thing that a lot of people do not do, is they do not revisit their rates, their rate structure in comparison with what their capital needs are going to be down the road. So it needs to address all those things. So let me switch over here and look at some. Let's go to this here. There's a couple reports that have come out, and some of these actually date back a ways. So this is from 2016, Bipartisan Policy Center, and they're back in 2016. So we're talking, 7 years ago, and same old problem. It just is not going away, right? So America's aging water infrastructure. America has a water problem. It's and so this is what's important here. Is, let me just highlight this, is the American Society of Civil Engineers estimates $3.6 trillion would need to be invested into U.S. infrastructure by 2020 just to raise the country's support systems to acceptable levels. Now, U.S. infrastructure includes stuff that's beyond water, but you can really see that what we're looking at here is huge investments because of all this deferred maintenance. So now they say that here also below that, capital investment needs for the nation's wastewater and stormwater systems are estimated to total $298 billion. Drinking water infrastructure, they're looking at a $1 trillion is really what it comes down to. So that's that right there. So that's $1 trillion for drinking water systems. So by 2020. Obviously, that did not happen. So we're still fighting that battle. So these numbers have actually gone up from 2016. So there is some money out there. There's not $1 trillion out there for water utilities. So we're fighting a losing battle at this point, but it needs to be addressed. And it's it's going to be some combination of federal funds and local funds, and you're probably going to see rate increases, like I say. And it's an unpleasant topic, but and this goes into basically the needs. What I wanted to show you here in this report is current federal programs for funding things, and probably the two biggies are the ones I have with this. The square around here is the EPA Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. These monies are provided by the EPA to the states, and the states allocates those through the State Revolving Fund, or SRF for short. The other biggie program out there is the USDA Rural Utilities Service. This is more for generally for rural utilities, but it is a major source of funds out there, both grants and loans. And the trick with that is you get preferential treatment if you're below the median household income in the area. So that's a little tricky. So if you're above the median household income or at the median household income, it gets a little trickier to get some of these funds. State Revolving Fund is both a grant and a loan program, probably more loans than grants, but it's a low interest loan. So there are some other programs here that really are more niche type programs, but the two biggie are the SRF and USDA programs. So that's what I wanted to show you here. They talk about public-private partnerships. That can be a little challenging for small to medium-sized districts. Worked great for major utilities. For smaller utilities, you're going to rely on your own funding, or probably these two programs here, USDA or the SRF, and that's really what you're looking at in terms of funding for small to medium-sized water districts. All right, so moving forward, this is from 2021. This is the the drinking water scorecard, drinking water infrastructure scorecard, and you can see they get a C minus. I'm surprised it's not even a D plus, but C minus, probably even a little optimistic there. So, but let's look at some highlights here. 2.2 million miles of underground pipes that deliver safe, reliable water. I would question that sometimes, but but as they point out here, the common theme in our talk today is a lot of the system is aging and underfunded. There's a water main break every 2 minutes, and an estimated 6 billion gallons of treated water is lost each day in the U.S. I would argue that it is more than that. We've seen multiple billions of gallons just lost in Houston, Texas alone last year. So this is so one thing that capacity, and you can look this up online, it's the scorecard, but there's a couple highlights here I really wanted to hit in the interest of time. Operations and maintenance here. So maintenance costs reach an all-time high of 50.2 billion above capital in 2017, in part due to deferred capital projects. This means that maintenance costs exceeded the available funds by $50.2 billion in the country. So that's a big number. I suspect that's probably underreported even, but there's costs there that are allocated for maintenance, and we're saying that we're going above and beyond that. We don't have the money to do that. The water systems don't have the money to do that. So a recent survey found that, and this is from 2021, by the way, a recent survey found that 47% of the maintenance work undertaken by utilities is reactive and done as systems fail. this is always going to be more expensive. It's always going to be more expensive to do emergency repairs than preventive maintenance up front. So, and in the yellow highlight here, one of the measures that utilities are taking to improve operations and maintenance and shore up resilience and affordability is the development of asset management programs, which shift decision making from reactive to proactive. And that is really what an asset management plan, along with a related capital improvement plan, really does. You can go from being reactive, which is more expensive, to proactive, which is going to be less expensive. So it just requires some planning. And the other highlight here I got here is a third of drinking water utilities have a robust asset management plan in place, which means that 2/3 of water utilities out here, and I will venture a guess to say that the majority of that 2/3 is probably small to medium sized district that don't feel like they have the wherewithal to put in a proper asset management plan in place, which isn't true. They just need a little bit of guidance. So the rest of this talks about public safety and future needs, resilience and innovation, and some recommendations here at the end that really talk about funding and asset management programs. So there's a person out there that I found him online, trying to connect up with him on LinkedIn. He's got a couple papers out there, and this is kind of what he does, Gregory Baird. Um, he's got a game plan for aging water infrastructure here that he published. This is from 2010, so it's been a while. Obviously, it's not implemented. A lot of his stuff, this is published by the AWWA in 2010, but a lot of his stuff is really stuff that there's some good information here, but a lot of it is really geared towards a lot of the solutions can be applied to smaller water districts, but the majority of his stuff is really geared towards bigger water systems. I think, if you talk to him, he may argue differently, but I work with these small guys, and a lot of times it's challenging to get things done. But he's got some rules, here, and I'm not going to read all these to you, but basically he's got a game plan he's put together. Obviously, a lot of this stuff has not been implemented. Um, one thing he points out here, there's a great deal of competition for limited funding. Uh, this since 2010, there's been more government funding freed up and some bonds and funding out there in various infrastructure bills, but still there's a lot of competition, and the people that are really geared up to get this are people that know how to write the grants and the funding applications. That tends to really hurt the smaller water systems that need to hire somebody to do that for them, and it gets expensive, and a lot of times they throw up their hands on that. So I think that's, he's talking about best strategies, condition assessment, useful life. These are elements of a proper asset management plan, understanding what the condition of your assets are, understanding what the useful life, putting those together, and coming up with a replacement program. That's asset management plan 101. Capital planning process, that's your capital improvement plan. Every asset management plan should be coupled with a capital improvement plan. They go together like Jack and Jill and day and night, and maybe day and night was not a good example, but they go together, and they need to be done together. So let's look at this one: the infrastructure investment gap. And basically saying, it's the old how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, and so that's kind of what we need to do. We need to get working on this. This is from 2010 also, so you can see that we've got 13 years under our belt. Not a whole lot has been done. He's looking at some studies that have been done. But what I wanted to point out here is, once again, as part of his bite-sized chunks, identification of physical assets is needed. This is part of the asset management program. It always goes back to the asset management program, and that is where you start on this stuff. And I think that's mostly, he does point out the critical need is at the local level. It's got to start locally. You can't have it coming down from on high. Regulations are one size fits all, and they may not meet. You're better off trying to do this on your own at the local utility level with an asset management plan or respective capital improvement program. And one interesting thing he does point out here is pipes represent the largest replacement cost. We got miles and miles of pipes in the ground. Most of them are aging, they're breaking, like that beginning story we saw about New York. And those are the largest replacement costs. You got to dig them up, you have to replace them. So I think that's most of what I wanted to cover here in this article. And then just kind of wrapping up here. I had one more article here. This is one of the. This is actually from ArcGIS, or Esri, produces ArcGIS, and they talk about the role of geographic information systems in asset management. And part of asset management plan is knowing where your assets are. And then you can put together a database, you know where the assets are, you know where every single asset is geolocated. There are some really cheap GIS systems out there. ArcGIS tends to be one of the more expensive solutions, but there are some relatively inexpensive ones that are available for smaller water systems. And I really recommend that be part of your asset management program, that every asset be geolocated. And it takes a little bit of work, but it can be worked into your regular workflow. So this article just talks about that, and I wanted to just point that out because there's a lot of information in here on that. And this is also written by Greg Baird, but it's really pointing out the GIS component of the asset management program, and I highly recommend that. So there you go. There's the problem is our aging infrastructure. The solution is really you gotta get some federal funding involved. You got to get some state funding involved. So a lot of these at the state level, they can issue bonds, and then that money gets out there. But it often does not trickle down to small to medium sized systems. They're going to have to up their game as far as applying for these funds, and there is some help available through state rural water associations and through grant writers that you can employ to do this, to write a grant for you. And there are some other ways to get that done. And I urge small to medium water systems to really explore those options to get that funding. But the other thing is getting going on an asset management plan coupled with a capital improvement program is really going to even the score. You can get things back to where they need to be, and then you can go forward doing the proactive approach, which is going to cost you a whole lot less than the reactive approach, which is constantly repairing breaks and emergency repairs. So that's really what the answer is. It's going to take a while to get it done, but it's never going to get done if we don't get started on it, and that's where we need to go. So when I talk to small water systems, I ask them about their asset management programs. It's something that really needs to be done, and we're in the process of really trying to skinny that down. And USC APA has some information available for small water systems, really simplified asset management programs. And so I'm happy to talk with anybody about that and how that can be implemented. So you can get a hold of me at groundwaterguy.com and or tballard at groundwaterguy.com. I'm happy to talk to you about this and take it from there. So if you would like to be a guest on a future Groundwater Talk Live, this is the Book Me page. You can come on. We'd love to have you talk about groundwater or water issues in general, actually. So if you're an expert in your field, we'd love to have you on. That is our show for today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the Groundwater Guy YouTube channel. That is where all our past videos reside. We got over 100 videos up there now, so there's something for everybody. So subscribe. You can hit the bell if you want to be notified when we have a new show coming out or we post a new one up. We do this every Thursday, 11 a.m. Central Time, and so we will see you next week.